The Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction has asked the National Assembly to approve 260 billion naira for it in the 2025 budget in order to create 2 million jobs. Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Nentawe made the demand on Friday when he appeared before the National Assembly Joint Committee on Poverty Reduction and Social Investment for the Ministry's 2025 budget defense. But the House of Representatives Committee on National Security and Intelligence said the total allocation of 595,024,943,368 to the subsector in the 2025 appropriation bill was inadequate. The committee chairman, Honorable Ahmed Satomi, made this known on Monday in Abuja at the budget defense meeting with agencies under the committee's oversight jurisdiction. Yilwada was accompanied to the session by the National Coordinator of the National Social Investment Program Agency, Ms. Agbadamosi Lawan. All right, okay, well, Rufai, we had the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction with us, I believe, last week. He had an opportunity to share with us his plans for the ministry. Not sure you've seen that interview, but it was an opportunity for him to detail some of the things he's done, also maybe give an account of the previous administration, even though he wasn't the one, in charge of the ministry. But what do you think about this additional 260 billion naira to create 2 million jobs for Nigerians?
At first, it's good you talked about the previous administration because we've not seen the end. What happened to Better Edu? What happened to the minister before Better Edu? There are many cases on. Have these cases been concluded? I think it's a slap on the face of Nigerians without giving them updates as regards issues like this, and we'll move on like nothing happens and they just change the minister. That aside, he says he wants to do a lot of things. He said he wants to do a lot of skill training. Yeah. That'll cost him about 50 billion, tuning up skills. He said he's got kits to be able to empower people across the state. That'll cost him some money. He says he also wants to, try as much as possible to be able to make people employable, over 110,000 kits and the likes, and he detailed everything. You see, I don't have problems with giving this social welfare interventions in society. But the question is the question of transparency. And I'm happy that Mr. Gbadamosi talked about transparency there. How can we evaluate these things? Who are the beneficiaries? What is the modus operandi of selecting the beneficiaries? Are we going to use Google Map, like Better Edu said that time, to ship in palliatives? Is that going to be the case? Are these people going to be APC members? Is there a portal where we can verify? Many other schemes across the ministry in the past, we've seen how it's been done. Till today, a lot of people say, oh, the conditional cash transfer thing was like Marmite. Some got it, some didn't. Some liked it, some didn't. So how can we ensure that there's a great deal of transparency across board? And this government owes the responsibility to tell us, has Better Edu's case been cleared? Has the previous Minister Farouk's case also been cleared? I mean, these are questions we need to answer. If you don't answer those questions, we can't move forward with integrity. And all those monies, have they been properly accounted for and retired? We wish Professor Nentawe well, but with all of this too, we need to see impact. We need to see attendant development. It's not just spending money on the schemes.
All right, so not just spending money. Dr. Abati, your take on this story.
Okay, very quickly. This economy has been described by many people as a palliatives economy. And what Professor Yitilda has just gone to the Senate to talk about is how more palliatives can be provided for the purposes of humanitarian aid and poverty alleviation. What is the content of what he's asking for more money for? Startup packs, training, skills to wealth, people will be put together, vulnerable households, in situations of emergency, money will be distributed to the people. We have seen in this country, and with this same Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, situations whereby the ministry could not account for money. We have seen pictures of former ministers handing over cash, physical cash, to people. It was that same ministry that was involved in the big scandal in recent memory of giving food to children in schools that were locked up during COVID-19. And yet we were told billions of naira were spent providing food for students who were not attending school. In other words, there is a problem here in terms of transparency and accountability. There's also a problem here in terms of the institutional memory and what Nigerians know about this Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Fanciful title, but it's not just throwing money at poverty that is the issue. And that's where I'm going. Because we seem to have arrived at a crossroads in this country with regard to poverty reduction. Thinking that if you throw money at poor people, their expectations will suddenly be met. I think Professor Yitida was saying something about, Yitwada was saying something about creating 2 million jobs. Do you create jobs by just throwing money at the problem? The real thing that the administration needs to do, the past and in the future, is to create opportunities for productivity within the economy. You don't create jobs by getting a bigger allocation from budget presentation. You create jobs by re-engineering, the productive space within the economy. The people will have jobs. You will reduce poverty. You will give people opportunities. You will give them hope, which is what the government is trying to restore. Now, as a young journalist, I used to stand, at the balcony at Rutam House many years ago in the Isolo area. The Isolo area was called, I think it was an industrial hub in Lagos at that time. By 5 p.m., standing in front there, getting bored, editing other people's copies, and just standing, watching the traffic, you will see bus loads, lorry loads, taking people from the Apapa industrial area, the Isolo industrial area, moving. Do you know that we don't see such spectacles again anywhere in Nigeria? What you see now is people going to church. You see people, everybody is going to church. All the factories within that Isolo area, many of them have become churches, or they are rented out for all kinds of service. And these churches are so entrepreneurial. They always have one program every day of the week. Nigeria never used to be like that. And it's to return to that. It's not about giving money, you are giving households money. We don't even have a national, properly vetted social register. So you don't even know who is getting this money. And that's why the question will come up about partisanship. Well, the budget defense process is apace. There were some other issues that came out. The House of Reps saying that more money should be given to the intelligence services. Usually, the intelligence services need to be properly funded. And then, of course, we're told all of that falls under the rubric of national security. But what is disturbing about that was pointed out in the report, is that in 2023 and in 2024, some of the critical intelligence agencies got no allocation. So is it a problem with the envelope system? There was something called the envelope system, I think, introduced under the Buhari administration. Is it that the envelope system is not working? Is the envelope system, a block, a disincentive, a problem for budget performance, which was put at 43% for the fiscal year, 2024. The other issue that may be of personal interest is that I think it was the Senate saying that 8.9 billion allocated to the Ministry of Information is not enough. Yeah. Now, it's not a personal thing in real sense. That ministry, the Ministry of Information, has many parastatals under it. Yeah. Those parastatals need to function. Their job is not just, informing the people. There's also a lot of bureaucracy under, that particular ministry. So it's interesting that it's not the minister himself asking for more money. It's the lawmakers themselves saying you have to empower the Ministry of Information. However, There's the other subsisting argument on the table about whether Nigeria actually needs a Ministry of Information. But that's a far more complex argument that I don't intend to go into this morning.
Well, talking about a need for a ministry, the question has also arisen as to whether or not Nigeria needs a Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. This is because of the many controversies that have plagued the ministry since its creation under the former administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, with Sadiya Umar Farouk as the first minister, and then going on to Dr. Betta Edu as the next minister under Tinubu's administration. The reason for this question mark around that, like I've mentioned, around the ministry is because it seems like a lot of money is pumped into the ministry, but not a lot to show for it. And that's why they come under a lot of scrutiny, and there's a trust deficit with regards to the extent of the impact of that ministry. But do we need a Ministry for Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction? On my part, I'll say absolutely. This is because of the fact that Nigeria is grappling with a poverty challenge. The challenge is putting the word mildly. And the Tinubu administration has been very resolute in dealing with poverty and ensuring that people are able to have some form of sustainability in their livelihoods as citizens. Unfortunately, what has happened under the first year of his administration is that the ministry still carried over, inherited the challenges of the previous administration with corruption allegations, which have still been unsolved with regards to the investigations, going on. And now we have a brand new minister who seems, in fairness to him, quite eager to work and quite eager to move away from the previous dirt or the stain of the ministry. When we had him on the show last week, he had talked about some of his initiatives, and I'd asked him a question about sustainability. How long are we going to keep giving people money without actually tying it to outcomes or seeing how these monies go a long way to not just solving an immediate problem, but actually taking people out of poverty? It's not just about giving people pitance or giving people fish. It's teaching people how to fish so that they don't have to depend on, palliatives to survive. So two things I'll just say this morning before we move on to World Brief and Newspaper Review. The first is that we've talked about the other things where he said about training and accountability, who's on the social register. But when he talks about training undergraduates or people who are, school leavers, it's not just about them setting up businesses. On that, I think it's a skill to wealth initiative. It is that if we don't have a conducive environment for businesses to thrive in Nigeria, train as many people as you will, but they will still get into the business, become entrepreneurs, and their businesses will fail because the indices or the environment for them sustaining that business does not work. So a number of things. And, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, the CBN governor, had said that as long as there's inflation, you can't tackle poverty. So these are some of the economic issues that we must be serious about if we really want to do away with poverty, or at least reduce poverty in Nigeria. But we'll keep this on for further conversation later on in the course of the show.